Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the top stories first. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has thanked government lawmakers and supporters after winning a trust vote from the parliament. Addressing the National Assembly, Khan said, "Nations without a vision die and development is linked with morality." Khan was able to secure 178 votes against the 171 required to win confidence. In Doha, US envoy Zalmay Khalilzad and Taliban leader Abdul Ghani Baradar held discussions as they look for ways to speed up the Afghan peace process. A spokesman for the Taliban said the two sides expressed their commitment to the Doha agreement at the Friday meeting. Earlier, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani said he is ready to discuss holding fresh elections to advance talks with the Taliban. As the Indian farmers protest against the controversial farm laws complete 100 days, the opposition party Congress describes the period as 100 days of ruling BJP's arrogance. In a tweet, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi says the phase is a black chapter in India's history for the treatment meted out to the farmers. At least 248 farmers have died during the agitation. In Myanmar, security forces have used tear gas and stun grenades to break up a protest in Yangon. It comes hours after a UN Special Envoy called on Security Council to take action against the military for the killings of protesters. The UN says more than 50 people have been killed in nationwide demonstrations since the February 1st coup. Pope Francis has appealed for peaceful coexistence in a meeting with Iran's top Shiite cleric Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani. This was the first meeting between the two religious leaders in the holy southern city of Najaf. Francis also visited the ruins of ancient Ur in southern Iraq, revered as the birthplace of Prophet Ibrahim. Brazil has recorded 1,800 more coronavirus-related deaths in the last 24 hours. The country's death toll has crossed 262,000 with more than 10.8 million infections. Here in Pakistan, the virus claimed 38 more lives and infected over 1,700 people overnight. Nationwide, the death toll has risen to 13,166 with more than 588,000 cases, while globally there are 2.57 million fatalities and 116 million infections so far. And in cricket, India beat England in the fourth and final test in Ahmedabad by an innings and 25 runs to seal the series 3-1. Needing 160 runs to make India bat again, England were bowled out for 135. And these were the top stories. News in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. Start from Pakistan, where Prime Minister Imran Khan has thanked the government, lawmakers and supporters after winning a trust vote from the parliament. The Prime Minister was able to secure 178 votes against the 171 required to win confidence of the House. Addressing the National Assembly, Khan said, "Nations without a vision die and development is linked with morality." He said Pakistan is on the way to progress and that the current account has remained in surplus for 5 months. The Prime Minister added that the value of national currency is increasing. He asked the nation to support him in future endeavours and said Pakistan will overcome hardships with courage. Now in Doha, US envoy Zalmay Khalilzad and Taliban leader Abdul Ghani Baradar held discussions as they look for ways to speed up the Afghan peace process. A spokesman for the Taliban said the two sides expressed their commitment to the Doha agreement at the Friday meeting. Earlier, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani said he is ready to discuss holding fresh elections to advance talks with the Taliban. US President Joe Biden is in the midst of reviewing his strategy for Afghanistan, including an agreement reached with the Taliban last year. However, violence across Afghanistan has escalated even as the Taliban and Kabul are holding peace talks in Qatar. Now, the chairman of Hurriyat Forum, Mirwais Umar Farooq, says Indian actions in occupied Kashmir cannot change the ground realities. Farooq, who is under detention, said New Delhi will have to settle the Kashmir dispute sooner or later. In an online interview in Srinagar, Farooq said people's aspirations cannot be suppressed through the use of force. He said that he has been under house arrest for the past 19 months. Meanwhile, occupation troops launched a cordon and search operation in South Kashmir's Shopian district. They also began a door-to-door search operation, terrorizing the innocent civilians. As the Indian farmers' protest against the controversial farm laws completes 100 days, the opposition party Congress describes the period as 100 days of ruling BJP's arrogance. In a tweet, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi says the phase is a black chapter in India's history for the treatment meted out to the farmers. Earlier, farmers blocked an expressway outside New Delhi to pile more pressure on the government. At least 248 farmers have died since November 26 during protests at the capital's borders. Their movement has gained international support, including from celebrities such as climate activist Greta Thunberg and US singer Rihanna. Now moving to Myanmar, where security forces have used tear gas and stun grenades to break up a protest in Yangon city. Now, it comes just hours after a UN envoy called on Security Council to take action against the military for the killings of the protesters. Pro-democracy activists staged a protest in Myanmar's southern town of Dai Wei, chanting, "The revolution must prevail." Hundreds also gathered in Nepal's city of Kathmandu and Australia's Sydney to protest against the military coup in Myanmar. Meanwhile, Myanmar authorities have asked India to return 8 police officers who sought refuge to avoid military orders. The UN says more than 50 people have been killed in nationwide demonstrations since the February 1st coup. Now, Pope Francis has appealed for peaceful coexistence in a meeting with Iraq's top Shiite cleric Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani. The meeting held in the holy city of Najaf is the first between the two leaders. Later, Francis headed to the ruins of ancient Ur in southern Iraq, revered as the birthplace of Prophet Ibrahim. This is his riskiest foreign trip amid the tightest security ever seen for a papal visit in Iraq. Now, the US has extended the state of emergency for Iran beyond March 15, 2021 for 1 year. In a statement, President Joe Biden said Iran's policies pose an extraordinary threat to Washington's security and economic interests. Biden also accused Iran of proliferation of missiles and supporting terrorist groups. He said Iran continues to malign activities of the Revolutionary Guard Corps and its campaign of regional aggression. Former President Bill Clinton had declared national emergency state with respect to Iran in March 1995. It prohibits certain transactions related to Iranian petroleum resources. Meanwhile, Iran has warned Israel against consequences as a result of any possible miscalculation. In a letter to the UN Secretary General, Iran's envoy Majid Takht Ravanchi rejected allegations of attacking Israeli ship in the Sea of Oman. Ravanchi said the incident is a false flag operation to pursue malign policies and advance illegitimate goals. This comes after the Israeli defense minister threatened to strike Iranian targets. Benny Gantz also showed a map of Iranian installments in Lebanon that he said Israel could target. Now, the development coincides with the hopes of informal nuclear talks between the United States and Iran. Moving on now, the coalition in Yemen says it has intercepted and destroyed 2 more drones launched by the Houthis towards Saudi Arabia. This has raised the number of such strikes to 8 in the last 24 hours. Saudi Civil Defense said debris from the drones injured a 10-year-old child and another civilian. Earlier in a tweet, a Houthi spokesperson said they had attacked King Khalid Air Base in the Khamis Mushaid area. The latest strikes by Houthis are majority directed towards the southern cities of Khamis Mushaid and Jazan. These attacks have increased manifold in recent days amid ramped-up international efforts to end the war. The UN Security Council has failed to issue a statement calling for an end to violence in Ethiopia's Tigray region. Diplomats say Ireland drafted the statement but decided not to push further after objections from 3 countries. Fierce fighting reportedly continues between government and rebel forces, threatening the fate of Tigray's 6 million people. The draft statement said millions of these people require urgent humanitarian assistance. He called for full implementation of Addis Ababa statements and unfettered access of aid workers to the region. Now moving to Nigeria, where gunmen have killed 16 people and injured 9 others in Sokoto State near the border with Niger. An official said the gunmen arrived on motorcycles and opened fire in Tara village. Saidu Naino Ibrahim added that bandits came from Dogon Zango in neighboring Zamfara State. The lawmaker said the attackers also took away more than 100 cows. Now in Somalia, at least 20 people have been killed and 30 others wounded in a suicide car bomb blast in the capital, Mogadishu. Officials say the operation is still going on to establish the exact number of casualties in the attack outside a restaurant. Meanwhile, local media said the blast was so strong that it caused massive material destruction and at least 1 building collapsed. Police have blamed the attack on the Al-Shabaab terrorist group, but no one has claimed responsibility for the attack so far. Now, at least 4 people have died in Senegal as protests to support arrested opposition leader Ousmane Sonko turned violent. Police clashed with protesters in front of the courthouse where Sonko made his first appearance since his arrest on a rape charge. Demonstrators also marched through the capital Dakar towards the presidential palace and ransacked government buildings. Interior Minister Antony has called the widespread protests as organized insurrection. Authorities have also restricted internet access and suspended broadcasting by 2 private TV channels that covered the protests. Now, Brazil has recorded 1,800 more coronavirus-related deaths in the last 24 hours. The country's death toll has crossed 262,000 with more than 10.8 million infections. While globally, there are 2.57 million fatalities and 116 million infections. More details of coronavirus in this report.
The global fight against coronavirus seems like a roller coaster ride as achievements are hitting snags. Canada has approved Johnson & Johnson's vaccine, making it the 4th shot to be approved in the country. However, frustration grows over the slow start of inoculation drive. The U.S. is extending exclusions on tariffs for face masks, cleaning supplies and other personal protective equipment from China for 6 months. Meanwhile, Senate Democrats have resolved differences over unemployment aid in President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID-19 aid bill. The deal will enable the Senate to move forward with a sweeping package after hours of delay. And the World Health Organization has warned that countries could lurch into 3rd and 4th surges if curbs are hastily eased.
I really am very concerned that all of us, governments and individuals alike, think in some way psychologically, and I understand what's driving that. We think we're through this. We're not. And countries are going to lurch back into 3rd and 4th surges if we're not careful.
The WHO also announced that the global COVAX program has delivered 20 million vaccine doses to 20 countries in the first week of distribution. Over in Europe, Czech Republic has asked Germany, Switzerland and Poland to take in its COVID-19 patients as hospitals overflow. Meanwhile, English authorities have tracked down a previously unidentified person who tested positive for the Brazil-linked variant.
We've now successfully identified the 6th case of the variant of concern first identified in Manaus in Brazil. Using the latest technology and with the dogged determination of our testing and tracing scheme, we've successfully identified the person in question.
Poland's cases of the British coronavirus variant are rising, with the B117 mutation now accounting for 15% of infections. And in Africa, Kenya has started vaccinations to help revive the battered tourism-dependent economy.
Meanwhile, Pakistan has reported 38 COVID-19 deaths overnight, with the toll rising to 13,166. In the past 24 hours, the Health Ministry recorded a further 1,714 infections. The ministry said the total number of infections has surpassed 588,000. It confirmed more than 558,000 people have recovered from the virus so far. Meanwhile, the number of active cases remains over 17,000. More news coming up in this news bulletin after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now moving on with the news stories, we go to Russia, where court has ordered jailed opposition leader Alexei Navalny to pay $6,700 in damages in a lawsuit. Kremlin-linked businessman Yevgeny Prigozhin had filed the case in December last year. The court said Navalny must pay damages for his comments that were deemed defamatory and offensive. But critics say these lawsuits and the jailing of Navalny are part of a campaign to cripple their activities. Russian authorities have denied the charges. Prigozhin has been accused by the US of election meddling and is facing sanctions by Washington and the European Union. In France, the Greenpeace activists protested at the Charles de Gaulle airport in Paris by painting an Air France plane green. They demonstrated on the tarmac to denounce what they called the government's greenwashing on air transport. Airport authorities said the activists were immediately intercepted and detained by police. They said a probe will be carried out into the conditions of this intrusion, which constitutes an offence. Greenpeace France says faced with the climate crisis, it is necessary to regulate and reduce air traffic. They have called for the abandonment of a dozen airport extension projects. In a statement, the NGO argued the recent proposals by France's transport minister will not be enough to tackle the climate crisis. The bill includes a provision to prohibit internal flights when there is an alternative train journey of fewer than 2 hours. Now, in Algeria, thousands of protesters took to the streets against the political elite for a second successive week. The street protest movement was suspended a year ago due to the pandemic. The protesters are calling for the removal of the old political establishment and the army to quit politics. They also vowed to continue their movement until their goals are achieved. Meanwhile, the UN human rights body voiced concern at what it called a crackdown on the protesters. It said there was reliable information that hundreds have been arrested around the country. The mass street protests broke out in 2019, prompting the military to oust veteran President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. Now, Mexico's government has walled off the presidential palace ahead of a women's march. A rally is planned to protest violence against women and the president's support for a gubernatorial candidate accused of rape. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador says those calling on him to drop support for Félix Salgado are politically motivated. Barriers were also installed around other emblematic buildings and monuments in downtown Mexico City. The protest is scheduled for Monday, commemorating International Women's Day on 8th of March. According to official data, at least 939 women were victims of femicide last year in Mexico. The US says hackers may have compromised a large number of victims by exploiting vulnerabilities in Microsoft software. The White House says there is currently an active threat from hackers exploiting 4 flaws in Microsoft Exchange email application. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki warned the breach can have far-reaching impact. Talking to reporters, Psaki said Washington is working with partners to understand the scope of the attack.
This is a significant vulnerability that could have far-reaching impacts. First and foremost, this is an active threat. And as the National Security Advisor tweeted last night, everyone running these servers, government, private sector, academia, needs to act now to patch them. We are concerned that there are a large number of victims and are working with our partners to understand the scope of this. So it's an ongoing process.
Well, now the American Space Agency, NASA's Perseverance rover, has undertaken its first drive across the surface of Mars. It moved for just 6.5 meters in total, but Deputy Project Scientist Katie Stack Morgan said it was a significant moment. The drive marks 2 weeks since the 1-ton robot landed on the surface of the red planet. Engineers have spent this time commissioning the vehicle and its many systems, including its instruments and the robotic arm. Perseverance is on the mission to explore a near-equatorial crater called Jezero to search for evidence of past life. Now, a Prague cafe which first made a coronavirus-shaped cake in autumn last year is now offering its treatment. Let's find out in this report.
The Black Madonna Cafe in Prague's historic center is now offering vaccines. But this is not the Pfizer, Oxford or Moderna jab, but a strawberry banana-flavored dessert in the shape of a vaccine vial. Customers were charmed last year when the cafe began selling their virus cakes, and now patrons can follow up with treatment.
I bought both virus and vaccine. I've tasted the virus already and I liked it a lot. I also want to try the vaccine. I'm looking forward to it.
Good news for customers, this vaccine has no side effects, except maybe a satisfied tummy.
The European Union and the US have agreed to suspend tariffs used in the long-standing AIRBUS-BOEING dispute. The suspension will last for an initial period of 4 months. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen held remote talks with US President Joe Biden. In a statement, von der Leyen said both sides are committed to resolving the aircraft dispute. She called the development a positive signal for bilateral economic cooperation in the years to come. The White House said Biden underscored his support for Brussels and his commitment to revitalize the US-EU partnership. In a statement, it said the two leaders agreed to work towards resolving these disputes at the WTO. Now in sports, India beat England by an innings and 25 runs in the fourth and final test match at Ahmedabad Stadium. The hosts bowled the visitors out for 135 runs in their second innings on day 3 to clinch the 4-match test series 3-1. Trailing India by 160 runs in the first innings, England's top batting order collapsed yet again. The spin pair of Ravichandran Ashwin and XR Patel ripped through the English batting line. Both bagged 5 wickets hauls to dominate the proceedings for the host. Now, this victory puts India into the inaugural World Test Championship final against New Zealand in June. Now in tennis, Croatian Bona Koric and Hungary's Martin Fucsovics will face off in the semi-finals of the Rotterdam Open in the Netherlands. The winner will face either Stefanos Tsitsipas or Andrei Rublev in the final on Sunday. In the quarterfinal, Koric had 11 aces before wrapping up his win over Japan's Kei Nishikori 7-6 and 7-6. Meanwhile, Fucsovics bested American Tommy Paul 6-4 and 6-3 to storm into the final 4 of the tournament. Earlier, Tsitsipas and Rublev set up an exciting semi-final clash as they emerged victorious in their quarter-final contest. Both the Greek and the Russian took 3 sets to take down their respective opponents. Still in tennis, where Japan have taken a 3-0 lead over the hosts in the Davis Cup World Group 1 tie at Pakistan Sports Complex in Islamabad. The visitors beat Pakistan in the doubles contest on the second and final day to clinch the first round tie. Shintaro Mochizuki and Yosuke Watanuki dominated the Pakistani duo of Faisal Haq and Akil Khan 4-6, 6-4 and 6-2. Earlier on the opening day, Watanuki tamed Akil Khan while Keiichi Uchida overpowered Faisal Haq in the singles. Of the 24 ties across World Group 1 and World Group 2, 4 have taken place this weekend, while the remaining 20 are scheduled for September. The 8 highest-ranked nations of the World Group 1 ties will automatically progress to the 2022 Davis Cup. Now in golf, Canada's Corey Connors has grabbed a one-stroke lead to move atop the leaderboard at the ARNOLD Invitational in Florida. Connors scored a steady second round 69 with just one blemish on his scorecard, a bogey at par 3 seconds hole. The Canadian recorded 2 birdies and an eagle at the par 15 16th to finish at 9 under par with 135. Scotsman Martin Laird sits alone in second place, 1 stroke back after his second round 67. Meanwhile, Norway's Victor Hovland, Northern Irishman Rory McIlroy and American Lanto Griffin share third place at 7 under par. The tournament is the first PGA Tour event of the year to host fans up to 25% of capacity. And now let's have a look at how the weather is doing around the world. Well, that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News. Take care.